Well, it's been a while since we rated some Pokemon, so why don't we rate some Pokemon? We're over halfway through our Pokemon rating journey, and now it's on to the beloved Gen 5, often considered a high point in the series, or at least it is now. With a whole bunch of new Pokemon and a higher emphasis on story than previous games, Pokemon Black and White proved popular enough to get a direct sequel that continued the plot and showed you more of Unova.
That's right, but we're not here to talk about the narrative of Black and White. Instead, it's all about the Pokemon. Black and White introduced the highest number of Pokemon of a single generation so far, and while the decision to restrict access to returning Pokemon to the post-game wasn't to everyone's liking, it's safe to say that with over 150 new creatures to catch, there's something here that everyone can enjoy.
But which of the new Pokemon do we enjoy the most? That's the operative question of the day, of course, so let's rate the Gen 5 Pokemon. As before, we're rating all 156 Pokemon from this generation on a scale from 1 to 10 based on factors like design, usefulness in battle, and uniqueness. As a reminder, region-specific forms don't count until we get to the generation they're introduced in, so no Mega Forms just yet, that's for next time. Previously, we said we'd be rating fusion forms separately, but we've since reevaluated and discarded that rule, so Kyurem, for example, only gets one rating. With that all out of the way, let's get started. I understand this is Junichi Masuda's favorite Gen 5 Pokemon, and honestly, it's not a bad pick at all, simple but very pleasant.
It's fine, for the most part. Yet another Mew clone, but this one's alright. Wait, why is this at the start of the decks? Grass Starter looks whack this generation. No wonder Game Freak is totally running out of ideas for Pokemon this gen.
I've always been pretty ambivalent towards Snivy in the past, but looking at it now, I actually really like the design and that smirky grin.
Ah yes, Smugleaf. While I wasn't really following online Pokemon discourse leading up to Gen 5, I am aware of people trying to figure out the starters and giving them names before they were officially revealed and/or localized.
And already this line is losing me. Servine isn't the worst upgrade, but yeesh, I do not care for that rounded body shape, even if it makes sense for a snake.
God, I hate this thing. I remember picking up Snivy as my starter when I picked up White as a kid, and keeping it until level 35, then evolving it into Servine, just to have it for a single level before getting Superior. That's how much I don't like Servine.
They sorta had something going here, but I just can't get into Superior, sorry to say. Also, it looks like a banana being peeled, which doesn't add or subtract any points for me, it's just an observation.
As much as I don't like Servine, I love Superior. There's just something about the royal snake design that works so well for me.
Might be slightly biased because I used Tepig in my Gen 5 playthrough, but Tepig is a really solid, really cute little guy.
It's a pig, yep, and a pretty cute one at that.
Interestingly, I think Pignite pulls the best qualities from Tepig while still evolving in natural ways. This is how you do a middle starter Pokemon.
I hate to jump on bandwagons, especially Pokemon opinion related, but they seriously couldn't make Pignite anything other than firefighting. Up until Gen 9, the only firefighting types were the second and third stages of 3 consecutive starter lines.
While I really enjoyed using Emboar and I do like the design, the weird protrusions across its arms do prevent it from reaching greater heights.
I used to not really like Emboar all that much, especially coming off of Blaziken and Infernape, but this design is at least above average. I think it's the tusks?
I like where the Oshawott line goes far more than I like Oshawott itself, I think. I think it's the white body color that doesn't work for me.
Yes, Water. I think it's a better name than Oshawott, but I don't really mind this guy all that much.
Slightly better than Oshawott, and the light blue color is enough to give it another point.
Another letdown going from the first to second stage for starters. Is this the generation with the worst middle evolutions across all starters?
They call Samurott the formidable Pokemon, and it definitely is that. It is also pretty damn awesome.
Once again, pretty alright. I think one of the issues I have with this and Emboar is that they feel too much of a jump from the middle stages. Whether it goes 1, 1.5, 3, or 1 to 5, in terms of how much there is, I don't know. But the evolutionary progression feels off for this and Emboar.
Generic Route 1 rodent, although this one looks like it needs some sleep. Seriously, look at those eyes.
I really have no thoughts on Patrat. It's a Pokemon that rarely, if ever, occupies my mind.
Look at this little grump, he's so stupid.
I think this is the least interesting Route 1 normal type rodent. This could have benefited from a Psychic or Dark type.
Generic cute puppy. Look, I love dogs, but Lillipup is just a little pup. I would still pet, but it's not that impressive.
It's a dog, yes, but I really don't care for those tiny dogs that are 80% fur. You know, your Bichon Frise, your Shih Tzu, or obviously, your Yorkshire Terriers.
Herdier gains a lot of points because it has a far more striking design, even if it does have a permanent frowny face.
It's more fur, but with significantly more dog added to it, so more points for balancing out the fur-to-dog ratio a bit better.
Most long-haired dogs don't appeal to me, and unfortunately, Stoutland is no different.
Still not a fan of these super furry breeds of dog, St. Bernards and such.
It's like Glam Meow, but better. Not by a lot, but better.
This looks like it'd be the villain of a direct-to-VHS sequel to the Aristocats.
Nah, I'm good.
Lipard actually takes a pretty not great design in Purloin and cleans it up quite well.
So people don't like these elemental monkeys, huh? I can understand why, but Pansage doesn't bother me that much.
Loosely based off of the Three Wise Monkeys, Pansage should speak no evil and shut the fuck up.
Why he got that Darien Crescend hair?
Simisage looks like it wanted to sell me some weed in a Dare ad, but it was told it's not cool to smoke in school.
Again, Pansear isn't bad.
Why does he have a poop swirl for hair? I'll tell you why. It's because Pansear is a piece of shit.
Simisir looks like it's about to drop some hot beats, and I gotta say, I am not interested.
A Japanese Pokemon election in 2016 voted this as the least popular Pokemon, and in doing so, it won its own distribution event for ORAS. And it's very easy to see why this was voted the least in terms of popularity.
Again, Panpour isn't bad.
Okay, I've been hating on these monkeys for long enough. Panpour is just a swell fellow.
I can maybe defend some of the other elemental monkeys, but not Simipour. This one is trash.
Back to my anti-elemental monkey propaganda, Simipour looks like it was working with Simisage but wanted to sell me, like, a vape.
Another generic cute sphere, though the flower patterns are pretty, I suppose.
This is okay, I guess. I always thought it was a little bit weird, a little bit cute.
I actually think the fetus design is pretty inventive, and mixed with a tapir, it looks pretty nice.
It's a bit less weird and a bit less cute, but the dream mist it's always exhaling is a bit strange to me, at least as a part of its sprite and model.
Just a bird, but I do like in the official art how it's waving hello. Hello, Pidove.
Pidove is alright for a Route 1 bird. Nothing special.
Marginal improvements over Pidove that earn it an extra point. Also, hello to you as well, Tranquil.
It's certainly more Pidove, that's for sure.
Female Unpheasant is boring, male Unpheasant is horrifying. So you split that down the middle, and you get a bad Pokemon overall.
I wish this Pokemon had, like, usable offensive capabilities. Like, it is either running 60 power Aerial Ace / Pluck, or 140 power 2-turn Sky Attack as a flying type move, unless you used this for Fly. Or it uses its weaker special attack, in which case it gets only 75 power Air Slash. It sucks that this is also one of the few Pokemon this generation to learn Fly, and the earliest one you can catch, I believe.
Perhaps it sticks a bit too literal to the interpretation of Electric Zebra, but I just want to give them points for doing a zebra Pokemon in the first place, because zebras are cool.
You could realistically call this Unnovan Ponyta, and I think some people would believe you. Not that that's a bad thing.
Zebras are still cool, and while Zebstrika is a bit extravagant, it is undoubtedly a really good design.
It's just a bigger, angrier Blitzel, but for some reason I don't think it works as well.
Why do I want to grab Roggenrola by the top and shake him like a maraca? Is that weird? What's that top protrusion supposed to be anyway? Is it okay to grab that? Anyway, mid.
Roggenrola is just a cluster of rocks. Not very interesting.
It would hurt, but I want to pet Boldor. It is surprisingly cute.
Well, at least they attempted to give it some eyes?
It's an effective evolution of Boldor, but it doesn't appeal to me as much. Not sure why.
I don't know why, but this hulking stone titan is a beast of a Pokemon. I'd probably give it a 10 if its striking lightning blue shiny color palette was the default, but the red looks good too.
When I played Pokemon White on stream, I caught one of these and nicknamed it Pooshat. I stand by that name since this thing is rubbish.
I don't quite hate Woobat, but I can give it some props for going against a dark or poison type for being a bat.
Well, I suppose this is better, but it's still not very good.
Swoobat appears to be a cross between a pig and a bat.
Drillbur just looks so dang excited, and I absolutely love him.
Drillbur's just a diggin' mole, digging himself a diggin' hole.
Sandslash's edgy brother.
Fun fact, beta black and white sprites had the slashes on Excadrill's body flipped from the current version.
Diet Chansey. No, literally, this looks like Chansey if she went on a diet.
Probably the most slaughtered Pokemon in these games. If you've played these games at all, tell me if you never farmed rustling grass for some easy EXP.
God, I did not realize how pronounced Timbur's veins were, and they freak me the fuck out.
Machop, but if he worked carpentry.
He lift, he shift, but most importantly, he kinda sucks.
Machoke, if he worked construction.
I suppose Conkeldurr is an improvement, but not by much.
What, did you think I'd continue the joke? I only count 2 arms.
Oh, look at the little face, it's so cute.
Timepole is pretty cute. Nothing special, but cute.
This one looks like a dork, but I still sorta like it.
Quite a downgrade from Timepole if you ask me.
A solid Pokemon and a good evolution overall. Not much more to say, really.
This may be a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I don't think Seismitoad is all that bad. A somewhat standard amphibian design, but not bad at all.
But how he throw with only 3 fingers?
Oh boy, more discussion on why Pokemon need to wear clothes. What advantage does wearing a judo gi provide to throw?
But how he sock with only 2 feet? Wait, scratch that.
And why does Sock wear a karate gi? Also, why does its nose/eyebrow hybrid only go over 1 eye? Please do not recite the trivia section of Bulbapedia in the comments for this one.
Maybe this is a pretty standard bug Pokemon design, but fuck it, Sewaddle is precious.
Cute little bug. That's it.
Discount Bidoof.
Swadloon is as snug as a bug in a leaf. It's certainly not wearing a rug.
I really like the Mantis design, but Livani is still only a good Pokemon for me.
Generation 5 is where we really started to see bug Pokemon not be bad overall gameplay-wise, with only outliers such as Scyther or Heracross being worth taking into the late game, and Leavanny is a pretty decent example of that.
It's rare that bug Pokemon are cool, but Venipede certainly hits that description.
Not a bad design overall, but I could do without the Hunchback.
This guy reminds me of Wheelie from Kirby, and that's about all I have to say.
I think it's safe to assume that Whirlipede rolls around to move, right? So can the horns on its head and its ass retract, or is it a bumpy ride?
Holy shit, giant bug alert, kill it now, but also 7 points.
It's real Arthroplora hours now.
Cottony reminds me of mint ice cream, but probably doesn't taste as good.
Pretty average floofy plant, like a good Hoppip.
I like Whimsicott, and I don't know why.
Above average floofy plant. I'm not so sure of the vine-like ears or horns or whatever they're supposed to be.
Aw, this little onion is actually pretty adorable.
Pretty cute, all things considered. Not stellar, but good.
Discount Bellossom, but Lilligant is still really good.
Call me crazy, but I think this is one of the best-looking, vaguely feminine humanoid Pokemon we've ever gotten. I think it's the face not being very human that makes me like this more.
He's a fish, but don't touch or you will get an ouchie. Also, I prefer red striped form because it looks better.
Very angry fishy swimming at incredible high speed. I think I prefer red stripe Basculin since the eye shape isn't ugly and the red contrasts the green better.
Petting crocodiles is dangerous. Do not do it. Also, I would pet Sandile so hard.
A cute little desert crocodile. A pretty interesting idea for a croc design.
Crocorock just looks like it's too cool for school, and unfortunately, I don't buy it.
Sandile was pretty good, but Crocorock isn't that great. I wish this was red, angrier, and lost its knee pads.
Unlike the middle evolution, Crocodile is actually cool.
Wow, what a specific set of criteria I wished for, and look at that! They made a much better Pokemon.
Sorry, little dude, I don't care for you all that much.
It's not a bad design, but extremely simple. This would probably fit in, like, the first 2 generations.
Get away from me, Darmanitan. I suppose I prefer Zen mode, and it does give it an extra point.
Once again, not bad, but extremely simple. I definitely prefer standard mode over Zen mode, at least for Unova Darmanitan.
Discount Bellossom. Again. But also, it's not bad.
I have seen a fair amount of discourse around Maractus, and not much of it being positive, but I don't think it's all that bad.
I really like hermit crabs, and so Dwebble was always going to appeal to me, but even still, how can you deny that adorable face?
I owned like 3 different hermit crabs growing up, and so did my friend who I would hang out with almost literally every weekend. I don't think any of them lasted more than like 6 to 8 months.
Can someone help Crustle? It looks like it's being crushed. That's not cool.
I remember one time I was cleaning out the crab's cage and it snipped my finger. That wasn't fun. What was I talking about? Oh, right, Pokemon. Yeah, Crustle's pretty good.
Pull up your goddamn pants, Scraggy.
I never liked Scraggy's mouth. The always open, upside down crescent teeth bother me.
What a fucking dweeb.
I don't think Scrafty is much better, especially with the face, but at least there's more going on.
No, thank you.
I mentioned in the Gen 9 video that I despised Espathra, despite stating I generally liked abstract Pokemon designs. This is peak abstract Pokemon design, and Sigilif is what I had in mind when I made that statement.
It's flexing the mask on its dick, yo.
I don't really vibe with the lower bit of the eye, which might be mimicking a teardrop. I think a purely circular shape would have looked better.
Can't tell if this design is really cool or really bad, so I'm just gonna go right down the middle.
This is probably the best way to make a bulky ghost type, and is very visually distinct from the standard spirit design of ghosts past.
Basic, but I like Tortuga's design quite a bit.
Since this is the first video we've done since Gen 9 has come out, what's the difference between Fossil Pokemon and past Paradox Pokemon? Is Tortuga Paradox Squirtle or something?
Don't talk to me or my son ever again.
I picked this as my Fossil in my first playthrough of White, and boy did I regret it.
Prehistoric birds are really cool, and Arcan has just enough cuteness to make it a really good pick.
Despite its horrid ability, Arcan is a really sweet Pokemon.
I don't necessarily like Archeop's design as much as Arcan, but it did carry me a lot through my Gen 5 playthrough, so I want to give it points because of that.
The cooler Aerodactyl.
Look, everybody shits on the Trubbish line, but I will give them credit. For a sentient trash bag Pokemon, they basically nailed it. That being said, it isn't spectacular.
If you've been on YouTube long enough, you maybe remember the age of Pokemon spoofs. On my life, I swear I had the idea of a garbage bag Pokemon back in like 2006 maybe, making our own spoof videos.
Now Garbodor, I don't have a defense for. This thing looks pretty disgusting, but I suppose that was the point.
Anyway, I know this is like the easiest line to point at and say that Gen 5 has no good ideas, but like, muck.
Shadow the Hedgehog as a furry. Wait a minute.
This is one of the cleanest Pokemon designs of all time, and is very clearly going for that generational mascot pre-evolution idea that Riolu was.
Iconic for sure, but Zoroark is just pretty solid for me.
I'm pretty sure that this Pokemon is the reason that online battles come with a team preview and choosing Pokemon in a set order. Also, yeah, definite generational mascot Pokemon. It's a shame it never was playable in Smash, but damn that would be difficult to implement.
Minccino is getting a 9 purely because it's a chinchilla, and chinchillas are basically perfect animals.
Minccino is a pretty solid, yet simple design. Also, did you know that Professor Juniper's Minccino can be shiny when she's introducing the player to the world of Pokemon when starting a new game?
Minccino, but it slays, queen, yas.
Again, a pretty clean design. Nothing really that bad about it.
The kissy face bothers me more than it should, but otherwise, Gothita is an alright Pokemon.
Hot Topic poster child.
The lips don't bother me as much, and I love the deep black and white contrast on this line, especially on Gothorita.
I'm really not a fan of Gothorita's design. This whole line feels like it's trying to be the antithesis of the Ralts line, but it's a bit too human.
I think I previously wrote this Pokemon off as just being too gothy, but you know what? I was dead wrong. Gothitelle rocks.
Gothitelle isn't all that bad, despite still being very feminine humanoid. Maybe it's the dress-like design of hiding the legs?
Look, a ball. Ball, man.
Solosis is actually pretty cute, and a cell mid-mitosis is quite the out-there choice for inspiration.
I guess this can have an extra point over Solosis, but you know, it's still not great.
While definitely not as cute, Duosion is more of the same as Solosis. Also, I always wondered why Gen 5 critics never brought this up when saying that Unova has bad designs. This one is really just a green ball.
Okay, I actually like Reuniclus a lot. It looks like it's having the time of its life in that green goo.
A pretty solid design overall, especially given the theme.
Duck, duck, sploosh.
It's just a duck. Not a silly looking one like Psyduck, and not a really cute one like Quaxley. This looks like some concept art for a character in the DuckTales reboot from a few years ago.
I absolutely love how Swanna looks like she's disappointed in everybody in the official art. Anyway, it's just a swan, and swans are jerks, but they're also pretty, so whatever.
I know that these two are based off of the story of the ugly duckling turning into a beautiful swan, but they messed up and made the swan look worse.
Making an ice cream Pokemon is actually pretty fun, although I don't think Vanillite would taste pretty good. I mean, I like vanilla, but I doubt Vanillite actually tastes like vanilla. It probably just tastes like ice.
The other easiest line that people point to and say Game Freak ran out of ideas, but I quite like it. It's a simple and very topical design for an ice type.
Sharp protrusions, do not eat.
Vanillish is more of the same, but bigger, but it still works.
The same, but a hideous experiment that should not exist.
Yeah, making a double scoop doesn't make it worse either. Not that it makes it better than Vanillish, but I really never got the hate for these three.
You know, it is pretty amazing how much a simple colored deer can make for such a great Pokemon. I prefer Autumn form myself, although Summer form comes pretty close.
Deerling is super cute, and I guess it makes pretty good use of the season mechanics introduced exclusively in these games. I think I like Spring form the most, since the pink matches very well with the tan of the body, though Autumn form is close behind.
I saw a buck once. Also, I like Winter form the best because the white tufts of fur look really pretty.
While Sawsbuck is fine for the most part, I like that its name is somewhat referential to the 4 seasons. Sawsbuck, summer, autumn, winter, spring. I think I like autumn form the most, but winter is close behind, and could have been my favorite if its antlers were based more off of conifer trees and had some leafage to them.
Yes, it's another electric rodent, but Emolga can fly. Pikachu can't fucking fly, can't it? So high marks all around. Emolga is the best.
I would say this is probably the most forgettable Pikachu clone, but 2 of these volt switch between each other in Elisa's gym a lot, so it's kinda hard to forget.
I don't care for it.
This little gremlin looks like a pre-evolution of Heracross, and probably could have been if this was from Gen 2 and Heracross was from Gen 1.
Still don't care for this one, and I actually like Escavalier even less.
A solid improvement over Carablast, but trading it for a Shelmet to evolve each other is really dumb, and probably started the trend of introducing really stupid evolutionary methods going forward.
Actually, I think the Pokeball camouflage is pretty inventive, even if the face is just a Diglett face.
Voltorb's gimmick of Pokeball mimicry, but kinda worse at it, since Voltorb and Electrode at least look like they could have evolved naturally into a red and white color scheme, without the full pattern of the Pokeball.
If Dribson makes the joke we're all thinking of, I will rip his dick off. Also, not a great Pokemon.
Don't say it. It's not funny. Don't say it. It's not funny. Nobody's the imposter. Nobody is sus. Don't say it. Get out of my head. Get out of my head. Get out of my head. Get out of my head.
I don't know, I just think Frillish looks a bit too ethereal to me, and I really love Jellyfish, and I know this is a ghost type, but still, meh.
Yeah, these are some murderous jellyfish alright.
Same notes as before.
Jellicent is fine for the most part, though I think the heads are a bit too big compared to the rest of the body.
It may be the caring Pokemon, but I don't think I care for Alomomola all that much.
Oh wow, Gen 5 introduced the Love Disc clone.
Joltik's a little dude and I absolutely love it.
Joltik is super cute, at least for a bug.
What Galvantula loses in pure cuteness, it gains in looking super duper cool. I really love this line and think it deserves more attention.
Galvantula is an awesome bug-type Pokemon, especially given its unique at the time electric dual typing.
Sharp protrusions, do not eat.
Danger Egg.
This looks like the anti-Roomba, on the ceiling, not motorized, and doesn't clean shit. Anyway, it looks fine, I suppose.
It's certainly better than Ferroseed, that's for sure. Also, why do official sources, including the anime, call it Ferrothorn, when Ferris would imply its name should emphasize the first syllable, Ferrothorn?
I love how the 2 gears look like dopes, but that's literally the only thing I like about it because I do not like this design at all.
Another easy line to point and laugh at, but also Magnemite.
The same, but another gear.
Same as Clink, but I will admit that the names aren't doing them any favors.
The same, but choke collar.
Okay, Klinkling is a funny name, I'll admit, but other than that, it's just more of the first 2, like Magneton.
Spermfish. But actually, Tynamo looks pretty nice.
I don't like what's going on with Tynamo's mouth, but we found the only evolutionary line to still have no natural weaknesses, since Fairy-type ruined that for Sableye and Spiritomb.
The mouth kinda terrifies me, but Electric is kinda cool otherwise.
Electric is a bit better, but I don't like it flopping around on its tail.
I don't know what it is about Electros that makes it much more endearing to me, probably the limbs, but yeah, Electros is awesome.
Electros is a good design that looks so much better in its official artwork than it does as its animated sprite. And while the future model's animations making it levitate are nice, I don't like how it swims in battle.
He head too big for he goddamn everything.
Fun fact, the name of LGM references the acronym LGM, or Little Green Monster, the very stereotypical design for aliens that LGM is based off of.
Boring.
Why does almost every psychic type this generation have to be the slow, strong, bulky attacker? There's Sigilif, and everything else is slow. This is the fourth one, with Musharna, Gothitelle, Reuniclus, and now this. Also fun fact, Behemoth's name references the acronym BEM, or Bug-Eyed Monster, the other very stereotypical design for aliens that Behemoth is, well, less based off of.
Precious little candle boy, Litwick is the best, and I will not hear otherwise.
Litwick is adorable, and candles are, once again, a great design choice for a ghost type that isn't just a typical spirit.
It does lose some of the cute factor from Litwick, but Lampen's colors and design are still incredibly striking.
While not stellar, Lampent is a great evolution in the design of Litwick.
With a more intricate design and the same excellent colors as before, Chandelure makes an excellent final Pokemon in this line.
I genuinely think that Chandelure is one of the greatest Pokemon designs of all time. This isn't a joke, and is one of the very few hills I will die on regarding Pokemon.
God bless you.
I'm not a fan of the tusks, but Axew is a pretty cute dragon.
Fracture's wings on its mouth are a bit much, and otherwise, it's just kinda boring.
Still not a fan of the tusks, but I think the general toughness suits Fracture more than the cuteness suits Axew.
I like Haxorus just fine, but I do think it's a bit bland. Cool, but not impressive.
While cool, I think the axe-shaped tusks keep Haxorus from being a 10 out of 10 for me. I also wonder if this was designed as a pseudo-legendary at some point. It totally could fit as one.
God bless you. Also, Cubchoo is the best.
Just a little snot bear. Not a great design, but not bad.
Yeah, maybe there's some weird fur tuft placement at the crotch and the triangle head is a bit weird, but I absolutely love Beartick. Also would be my candidate for a Pokemon Christmas ornament.
I like Beartick's design, but I will never get over the tuft of fur placed conspicuously like pubic hair being the only real fur definition it has.
Geometry, yo.
Coriogonal is a cool, pun intended, design for an ice type. It's a surprise they hadn't done just a literal snowflake up until this point.
Love the idea, but Jesus Christ, the mouth bothers the hell out of me.
This looks more like a Kirby enemy than a Pokemon, but it's not bad.
This one can excel gore the fuck away.
And this looks kinda like a Kirby boss, but for the second level.
Stunfisk is a big doofus and I love him, although I suppose it's not an incredible design.
Stunfisk is such a funny design that I can't ever bring myself to dislike.
God bless you.
It's alright, I guess. It's a pretty basic design that feels more like a who that Horton would hear.
God bless you. Have some tissues, Gen 5. Anyway, Mienshao is very pretty.
Mienshao is better for sure, but not amazing by any stretch. It does stand out a lot more than Mienfoo at least.
Bit too spiky for me, sorry.
Druddigon is rugged and ugly, but I really like this design for some reason.
I go let this Pokemon into my heart.
It's not terribly interesting, but Golett isn't a bad design.
It's just kind of a big Golett, but Golurk is still pretty cool.
Again, not bad, and it's a bit more interesting, but still not amazing. Also, why does this learn Fly?
In the Gen 9 video, I said the Pawniard line is good, but Pawniard is the weakest of the three.
This is a really solid design, but also starts highlighting some of the issues with Gen 5 Pokemon, just how late you can encounter and evolve them.
Bisharp is where it's at. Sharp, pardon the pun, bold colors, and a nice design.
This is a very slick design that didn't even really need an evolution into Kingambit, but it does feel just a tad bit too busy.
Bouffalant is pretty meh-excellent.
This is just considerably worse Tauros.
Hey, I'm American. I like eagles, sue me. And I like baby birds too.
Yeah, this is pretty much just a bird. Would fit better as a Route 1 bird in place of Pidove, especially with the likes of Pidgey and Sparrow.
There is a lot of awesome colors in this one, and overall, Braviary just looks badass.
This bird is as American as George Washington and apple pie and baseball and guns and freedom, but mostly George Washington.
I just said that I like baby birds, and I do like the baby bird part of Vullaby, but the egg diaper? That makes me want to vomit.
Not a great counterpart to Rufflet, and having only white and white 2, I'm grateful that this is the worst version exclusive.
Now this is pretty awesome. Vultures are also pretty cool, and I think Mandibuzz fits the bill.
An improvement over Vullaby to be sure, but still just a step down from Braviary.
Heatmore what? Jokes aside, making a fire-breathing anteater volcano Pokemon is really strange, but I think it works really well.
Heatmore is such a lackluster Pokemon with a really great design. A fire-type anteater counterpart to a bug-steel ant Pokemon rivals that of Zangoose and Seviper.
Yeah, but can he B-ball like Kevin can?
As mentioned before, a great counterpart to Heatmore, but other than that, doesn't do much besides just being a metallic ant.
Love the Beetle's hair, but why is this one called the Irate Pokemon? He looks pretty peaceful to me.
I'll say it now, I'm not a fan of the shade of blue paired with the black for Dino, though I'm not really sure what would fix it. Whether that's different colors and a modified design of Dino itself?
That's a little more irate, and hell, I just love this line's choice of colors.
Zweilous falls a bit flat compared to whatever heights Dino reached, but I will take this moment to say I like the naming convention for this line, with the German Ein, Zwei, and Drei in the names matching the number of heads each one has.
Hydreigon has the same good qualities as before, and the blossoming heads are a really nice touch.
Hydreigon is a great design, but I'm still not huge on the color scheme. I wish I had more to say, but that's really it.
This little firebug is really good, simple, but very effective.
Larvesta is super cute, but it's a shame it's so inconvenient to get in black and white. Having to go back to Route 1, surf west for a few routes, collect an egg, and then hatch it.
Just like Slitherwing, Volcarona is an incredibly beautiful Pokemon. I love this one.
When I said all the way back that Scyther was the coolest bug type until, like, Gen 5, this was the bug type that I had in mind when I made that statement. I think this is the cleanest bug type design that Pokemon has ever had.
It's alright, I suppose.
I think that the Swords of Justice have some of the best designs for non-box legendaries we've ever gotten. Each one distinct in design, unlike Sinnoh's Lake Trio for instance.
Not bad, but Terrakion doesn't thrill me in any way.
While I'm not a huge fan of the horns on Terrakion, the rest of it is good enough not to drop at any compared to Cobalion.
Now this is a very pretty Pokemon, though I'm not entirely sure about the boots.
Another clean design, and though while similar in body shape to Cobalion, is distinct enough to not detract anything.
Nope, don't like this one. I suppose Therian form is better though?
Comparatively, I don't think that the genies, both incarnate or Therian forms, are as good as the Swords of Justice. I think I prefer Tornadus Incarnate, since the Avian Therian form looks a bit too goofy with its green and purple color scheme.
The colors are far better than on Thundurus, and it actually looks pretty okay. Still not great, and this time I prefer Incarnate form.
Just slightly better than Tornadus in my eyes, but not enough for a different score. Tornadus is a low 7, Thundurus a high 7, if that makes sense. I think I like Thundurus Incarnate more, but not really for any particular reason, as neither form does more than another for me.
I think the box legendaries for this generation are pretty middle of the road, and though it's a marginal difference, Reshiram is the worst of the two.
I never really cared for Reshiram that much until a few years ago, but on an unrelated note, one of the few Yu-Gi-Oh cards I had as a kid was a Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Like I said, these two aren't spectacular, but Zekrom is at least a majestic creature. Also, I named mine NASCAR.
Zekrom is a design that I've actually grown a bit less fond of over the years. Maybe it's the more vertical stance that Zekrom has over Reshiram.
The warmer colors look pretty awesome actually. Again, I prefer Incarnate form.
Ah yes, the face of competitive Pokemon singles. Fast and bulky attacker, has the contender for best ability and Intimidate, gets a plethora of good support moves. I think I prefer Landorus Therian this time, but mostly because it's the default form I think of when I imagine this Pokemon.
You know, putting two solid but unextraordinary Pokemon together doesn't make them any better. I guess Black Kyurem is the best form.
Kyurem always was my favorite of the Tau trio, funnily enough, even before Black and White 2 introduced Black Kyurem and White Kyurem. I think I like Black Kyurem the most, since it fixes most of the issues I have with Zekrom.
Kinda weird, but not terrible. I do like Resolute form a bit better because the horn suits Keldeo pretty well.
I think this is the weakest of the Swords of Justice, shying away from the Regal and Knightly designs of the other three, but it's still an alright design. I think I prefer Ordinary form the most, since the additional colored tufts of fur don't do anything for me, and the horn in Resolute form looks a bit sillier.
Meloetta is a simple idea done simply, but done well. I vastly prefer Aria form though, as the color contrast and body shape are much better.
I don't know what it is about Meloetta's design, but it just works for me. I prefer Aria form since I'm not a huge fan of the Pirouette form's orange design compared to Aria's light blue-green.
Look out, this Pokemon's got a gun! The forms are barely different, but I suppose Shock Drive looks the best?
While not a stellar design, I think this is a fine enough capstone to the last Pokemon designed and created for sprite-based games. I think I prefer Burn Drive Genesect the most, primarily since the drive is the exact same shade of red that the shiny variant is.
And that's every Pokemon from Gen 5 rated. Let's turn it over to Dribson for the usual rundown.
Thanks, Cloud. First, let's look at the running total of our average scores. Cloud's average score for Gen 5 was 6.40, putting it just behind Gen 9, but above Gens 1 and 4. My average score was 6.29, making this my third highest ranked generation so far. Of all 156 Pokemon from this generation, we gave 35 of them the same score, most of which we agreed were between decent and really good. Next, let's look at our total score counts for Gen 5, and the trends this time are pretty expected. We both tended to hover around the 5 to 8 range, but I was both more generous with high scores and more strict with low scores. On the other hand, Cloud's curve was a relatively smooth parabola. And as always, here's a quick recap of our ratings for Gen 5.
Now it's time for the awards for Gen 5, separating the cream of the crop from the cream of the crap. First, we've got the awards for best and worst starter lines based on their combined average scores, and the results this time are pretty interesting. For the Perfect Partner Award, we have a tie between the Emboar and Samurott lines. While the Emboar line was fairly consistent, Samurott boosted the performance of its pre-evolutions heavily. And obviously, the Atrocious Ally Award goes to the Superior line, but in all fairness, this line's total score compared to the others was only 1 point lower. So honestly, no matter which way you spin it, the Gen 5 starters are all pretty equal in our eyes.
Moving on to the awards for best and worst legendary Pokemon based on their combined scores. The mythical masterpiece for Gen 5 is Meloetta, a beautiful design that captivated us both. And the fantastical flop award goes to Tornadus, solely because of Cloud's lower rating.
Now we have the awards for best and worst type, calculated via the average score of all Pokemon in the type group. As before, Pokemon with type differences based on location or stat-based forms do count for all applicable types, so for our purposes, Darmanitan is both a fire and psychic Pokemon. The Excellent Element Award goes to Bug, which has had inconsistent performance over the past generations, but won out handily this time with some outstanding Pokemon. And the Catastrophic Category Award goes to Psychic, which did have some great Pokemon this time, but just couldn't overcome its weaker entrants.
Next, let's discuss the Pokemon with the best and worst glow-up. As usual, we tabulated this by finding the biggest gains and losses from one evolution to the next. Before we continue, we should follow up on a loose end from our Gen 9 video, as we couldn't determine how King Gambit fared compared to Bisharp. Now that we've rated the latter, we can determine that King Gambit did not dethrone Crocolore for the Metamorphic Mistake Award, so those of you keeping score at home can rest easy. Anyway, the Terrific Transformation Award for Gen 5 goes to Superior and Mandibuzz, who improved on their pre-evolutions by a factor of 8. And the Metamorphic Mistake Award winners also de-improved by a factor of 8, Servine and Simipour. It's not surprising to see one of the elemental monkeys here, and amusingly, this is the second time a third stage starter claimed the best glow-up award, while the middle starter got the worst one.
Let's transition to the award for the Pokemon that Dribson and I disagreed on the most score-wise. We've got two contentious critter awards this time, Sigilyph and Emolga, the former receiving a 3 from me and a 10 from Dribson, and the latter receiving a 10 from me and a 3 from Dribson. Don't you love how that worked out?
And let's wrap up with the awards for the best and worst antagonists, which, as always, includes rivals, gym leaders, Elite Four trainers, champions, and villain team leaders based on the average score of their teams. First, let's tackle the usual ground rules. When not counting duplicate Pokemon, only final encounters are judged where applicable, trainers must have at least one new Pokemon, super bosses only count if they're fought in the post-game, and no Battle Facility exclusive trainers. But Gen 5 is a special case since we have two sets of games here, both with their own group of trainers to judge. For this occasion, we decided to split the awards and give both Black and White and Black 2 and White 2 their own Big Bad Boss and Bad Bad Boss awards. We had a rule that a trainer who appeared in both games couldn't win the same award twice, but that didn't happen, so we're good. For Black and White, the Big Bad Boss award goes to Cynthia. She's memorable for obvious reasons if you've encountered her, but with the highest scoring team of any trainer we've tracked so far in the series, it's no wonder she took this award. And the Bad Bad Boss award goes to Morimoto. Sorry, Morimoto-san, but that's what you get for having all 3 elemental monkeys and Woobat on your team. For Black 2 and White 2, the Big Bad Boss Award goes to 2 trainers for the first time, Dragon Gym Leader Drayden and Sage Zinzolin. They don't have that many Pokemon, but the ones they do use more than fit the bill. And the Bad Boss Award goes to Rival Hugh, if he has an Emboar on his team. His other variants don't do well either, but Simipour once again lets Hugh down. By the way, Morimoto came within 1/10 of a point of having the lowest score for these games as well. Only time will tell if he takes this award again in a future installment.
Finally, let's give out the Special Honors Awards to the Best, Worst, and Best Worst Pokemon. The Hall of Fame hosts Pokemon with a combined score of 20, and both Galvantula and Volcarona join the club this time. The Hall of Shame is for Pokemon with the lowest combined score of 2, but Dribson didn't hand out a single 1, so no entrance this time. Finally, the Hall of Tame welcomes Pokemon who received a score of 5 from us both, and we've got 4 newcomers this time: Patrat, Munna, Conkeldurr, and Beheeyem. Well, that's another Pokemon rating series done and dusted. Unlike some of these games, I've actually played through the campaign of Gen 5, or at least Black and White's campaign, so I had a good idea of what to expect. Going through this game live on Twitch with Dribson on co-commentary duties was an absolute blast, and if you don't mind a shameless self-plug, you should definitely check out the stream VODs if you haven't already. But what struck me most about Gen 5's Pokemon was how fresh and unique some of these designs felt. We've ranked over 750 of these designs already, and as we've entered the second half of this series, I still find a lot of joy in seeing what the artists and designers thought up.
Gen 5 has always been one of my favorite games in the series. The animated sprite work in battle is great, a fair difficulty, and at least for Black and White 1, the best story in the mainline titles ever. There was much criticism floating around these games for years after their release, up until sometime after Gen 7. Mostly stuff like, oh, you can't use any old Pokemon, which is something I actually liked in Black and White. I think a lot of people missed these games when they came out because of this, which is a shame. I believe, truly, that Gen 5 is the best generation of Pokemon games, and I would argue the last games that lived up to their full potential. Gameplay, story, music, visuals. Sure, some other generations may be better in some regards, but no other games are as good of a full package. If you skipped over Gen 5 for one reason or another, I highly recommend picking it up. Black and White or Black and White 2, either is fine, though my preference is still and will always be the first game. All I hope for is that the Pokemon Company doesn't completely screw their best games in a remake. BDSP, cough cough.
With all that said, we'll be back later this year to talk about Gen 6, and from here on out, I have very little experience with the series, so it'll be interesting to check out the rest of the Pokédex. Until then, though, this is Cloud Connection and Dribson signing off. Catch you later.